Did Alexee Trevizo get away with murder? You guys have been messaging me and asking me these questions about Alexee Trevizo and providing an update. Now, we do have an update on Alexee Trevizo that is definitely worthy of a video, but some of you guys might not be familiar with the Alexee Trevizo case. So I'm going to do my best to break it down and then I will provide you an update. Some of you guys have completely forgotten about this case. I mean, I've even had people message me and say, hey, did she get away with murder? Well, no. So we're about to get into it and let me know what you guys think in the comments. So, for those that are not familiar with the Alexee Trevizo case, here's a really quick overview. On January 2023, Alexee Trevizo was 19 years old, young girl from New Mexico. Okay. Now, I cannot believe this was 2023. We are now in 2025. And so, yes, it's been a long overdue to figure out what's going to happen with this case. On January 2023, Alexee Trevizo, who at the time was 19 years old, went to a hospital, the Artesia General Hospital, New Mexico. She was seeking treatment for back pain. She went to the hospital with her mother. After hours of attending Alexee and Alexee denying that she was pregnant, she gave birth in the hospital, but not in the room that she's designated in. She gives birth in the bathroom of that hospital. She placed that newborn baby, they later named Alex Fierro, into a trash can, wrapped it in a plastic bag, and the baby was found deceased by cleaning staff. All of this was captured on CCTV footage that was later released online. So, of course, a lot of us that follow this case closely saw all of this play down from the time that she went from her hospital room to the bathroom. All that time at the hospital staff were knocking at the door. And then when she came out of that hospital room, basically had already given birth and her socks were soaked in blood, walking back to the room with the doctor as if nothing had happened. Such a horrific situation. Now, after she went back to her room, the baby was found by cleaning staff. Such a horrific scene. They found the baby inside of the trash can. There was a liner that was over the baby, so the baby basically suffocated to death.
We started working her up. We did a pregnancy test on her, showed positive. She was denying that she had sex. Then she said she had to go to the bathroom. She went to the bathroom. She was in there for quite a while. We kept knocking on the door. Finally, we got her to open the door, and there was blood everywhere. She was cleaning it up. Okay. So we took her back to the room, and I was afraid that she knew she was pregnant. She had done something to herself. Mm-hmm. So the doctor started doing an exam on her. We had the lady come to clean the bathroom. She put the baby in the trash can, and then she put another clean liner over the top of it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So when they looked in there, there was no trash in there, but it was underneath the clean bag. The baby's dead. Okay, we have him in trauma too, but she killed the kid.
Yeah. How old was the baby?
I don't know. It's full term. She just had it. She had it in the bathroom. Was what happened, and then whatever she did, I don't know. She's gonna lie. She wouldn't tell us she's pregnant. She's been lying the whole time.
Okay.
So that's what's going on. I just pulled the doctor out of the room, so nothing's been said to the patient or the mother that's in there yet.
Okay.
I have Leela, the housekeeper, if you want to interview her.
Yeah.
She's the one that kind of found
Yeah, because I wanted to get with you guys first and then get with her to get her.
An autopsy was done and it concluded that the cause of death of the baby was homicide by entrapment. And they noted that there was air present in the lungs, which indicated that the baby had taken breaths after birth. Alexee was later charged with first-degree murder in tampering with evidence and intentional child abuse, okay? Honestly, the saddest part about this situation is that you had medical staff there, but Alexee Trevizo being in the bathroom, not allowing people to come in while they're knocking, trying to offer some assistance. There could have been so many life-saving measures for this newborn baby that could have been applied there but weren't. Now, the other argument to this could be that the morphine or whatever medication she might have been on might have not allowed her to be thinking straight. I'm not really sure, but to me, it was very strategic of her part to put a baby inside of a trash can, put a liner over it. Very strategic for somebody that was under heavy medication. this baby didn't have a chance, and the death of this baby was very well preventable. But let me know what you guys think in the comments. There was footage of Alexee being confronted, Alexee being questioned by hospital staff about whether she gave birth. All the kinds of things were playing out. Alexee's mom was there. Hospital staff confronted Alexee about the fact that she gave birth to a baby. And Alexee kind of sat there and said it wasn't breathing. And I mean, Alexee's mom, if y'all ever had a Latino mom like me, what did you do with the baby? I mean, she kind of went in there and was like, Lexi, I told you about this.
Lexi, I told you about this.
I mean, it's a horrific situation, but the voice and all of that Alexee's mom did, I mean, it was just something that, for the longest time we talked about. Well, Alexee's mom didn't even know that Alexee was pregnant. I don't know how you don't know. Look at this picture. This was maybe about a month before. Okay. She's a very pregnant cheerleader. I don't know how anybody did not notice this. Okay. I guess they chopped it up the weight gang. No. A blind man can see that the girl is pregnant. Just say. So we were about to go to trial in 2024, and there were various legal developments and evidence disputes that happened. Alexee Trevizo's legal team came in there and basically filed a bunch of motions that suppress a lot of the body cam footage from the officers and anything that Alexee said. They found that there was a lot of violations. Of course, they're coming in there to have all this thrown out. Suppression motions led to a judge ruling that statements that Alexee made to hospital staff, including medical staff and law enforcement present, and video footage from the hospital could not be admitted at trial based on HIPAA and doctor-patient privilege rules. HIPAA laws were pretty big here, okay? Prosecutors have appealed this unfavorable ruling to the New Mexico court. So they took it up there arguing that medical providers are not barred from sharing information related to suspected crimes, and that Trevizo was not in custody, thus not entitled to Miranda protections. Now, in case you have forgotten, this is why this case reached the New Mexico Supreme Court. There was suppression of evidence under HIPAA doctor patient privilege. A district court ruled in favor of the defense by suppressing certain key evidence, especially statements Trevizo made to medical providers and doctors. The court held that these were protected under doctor patient privilege and that medical staff improperly acted as agents of law enforcement when those statements were obtained. The district attorney did appeal this ruling, arguing that privilege was effectively waived because Trevizo continued speaking in the presence of officers and her mother. The state contends that those statements were not protected and should be admissible. And we've talked about this plenty on this channel about, why didn't medical staff intervene and say, like, hey, can you leave? I mean, Alexee Trevizo was 19 years old and not a child whatsoever. Medical staff should have spoken to her personally and privately about a lot of the stuff that was happening and, questions that they had. So as a result, the New Mexico Supreme Court agreed to review whether those evidentiary protections apply, and the court accepted amicus briefs from outside parties. And again, this is, I think the legal term is amicus curiae. And essentially these are like impartial advisors. So the ACLU was brought in. I think a professor from a law school was brought in essentially to kind of give their opinion about the case and just their thoughts overall. I think the Latin translation is friend of the court. Okay. Through this, it's basically a person or a group that will petition the court for permission to submit a brief in the action intending to influence the court's decision. These briefs can impact not only the trial, but potentially future medical privilege and evidentiary standards in New Mexico. I mean, I'm looking at this brief right now, okay? And literally what we see here, they brought in a professor, they brought in all kinds of professionals to basically, make this argument to the Supreme Court, okay? The trial dates initially were set for August 2024. which was about a year ago, right? Instead of going to trial, Alexee went to college, okay? Pre-trial hearings were scheduled for early August, and they have been removed and vacated, leaving the case in limbo pending the Supreme Court decision. Now, not only is Alexee fighting the criminal case, she's also fighting a civil case. Alexee Trevizo's attorneys had filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the hospital, alleging negligence on the hospital's behalf. They claimed the hospital administered medications, including morphine, after a positive pregnancy test was known, but not disclosed to Trevizo, and left her unattended in the bathroom while she was heavily medicated. Defense attorneys argued that Trevizo did not know she was pregnant, was afraid, and didn't know what to do when she gave birth, citing the medication's effects and her conditions, which I just find that to be a little bit, in my opinion, BS, because the girl was asked in multiple times whether she was pregnant. She had answered no. Okay, so she's not pregnant, but apparently the medication made her put her baby in the trash can with the liner over it. I mean, it sounds very calculated. It sounds like something that she was trying to hide. And she could have very well been afraid of her mother letting her know that she was pregnant. Apparently, she had stopped taking the birth control because she decided to take like weight loss pills. So there's that. And she was asked if she was sexually active, and she denied that. So there was a lot of denials and a lot of things that Alexee denied. But again, this is what we saw. Her argument is that the hospital was negligent. The civil lawsuits, where we stand right now as of 2025, the civil lawsuits are still underway. So the outcomes for both cases, both the criminal and the civil, are very much so still pending. However, the New Mexico Supreme Court is scheduled for oral arguments on this case September 4th. Mark your calendars, friends. Mark your calendar, friends, because we definitely going to be covering this. And it's going to be live stream in the New Mexico Supreme Court. Okay. It's very active. You can see it at the website. So, two main things to focus on as it pertains to the Supreme Court. Two main issues. They're arguing whether the statements that she made to medical staff can be used as evidence, right? Once we figure this situation out, we could definitely proceed to the trial. This is what's been holding us up. So, the New Mexico Supreme Court is going to review whether statements she made to medical staff can be used as evidence. Her defense, again, argues that her comments in the hospital were protected by doctor patient confidentiality and should be excluded from trial. Huge piece of evidence right there, that I think, in my opinion, would be a loss to the prosecution if all of that is gone. Prosecutors argue that they fall under exceptions, especially because law enforcement was involved shortly after. Another thing that they're looking at, the second thing, the scope of medical privilege in criminal case. This could set a precedent in New Mexico for how far privacy protections extend when a patient is suspected of a crime while receiving treatment. And again, she neglected to tell staff that she was asked if she was pregnant. She did a urine test. The urine test was positive. They were trying to figure out what was going on. There was a lot that the medical staff could have done as well. And I definitely see a side of negligence. And we've talked about that here before. But once a woman gives birth to a child, leaves the child in a trash can or trash bin, I mean, yeah, child abuse, that's a crime. That's suspected child abuse and neglect. You would think that that would be, need to be reported, right? And then the child is dead. While the Supreme Court deliberates, her murder and evidence tampering charges remain active, but there's no trial date until the justice decides. So the trial is still in limbo. But let me tell you guys something. I have a feeling that this trial is going to start sometime in 2026, depending on, we still have a couple months before the end of the year. Supreme Court is supposed to make a decision. I have a feeling that depending on how they rule, we could very well go to trial here early 2026 on the Alexee Trevizo case. The civil case, however, for the wrongful death suit against Artesia General Hospital is moving forward separately, and that could involve depositions of hospital staff later this year. So again, this is the update. There will be oral arguments that are scheduled for September 4th, all of which will be live and everybody can watch. I think that this will be interesting. I'll definitely be following that and maybe even streaming. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Again, this is kind of where we're waiting at. I have a feeling that we're likely going to be seeing movement in a trial happening on this case sometime in the beginning of next year, 2026. And we will be following this case, okay? Very important case that has a lot of people on the internet, depending on what side of you stand about this, kind of going back and forth. But I will see you guys on the next one. And make sure you guys are hitting the like button, subscribing, and sharing. Bye, guys.